So, I've been feeling pretty drained lately. I think it's just from working. I don't like working. I also feel like just the lifestyle doesn't really align with what I'm looking for in my life. I'm up really late, and it just throws off my sleep schedule, which affects how I feel when I'm training, and then when I don't feel 100% training, and then I still train, it just kind of perpetuates it. So I've noticed I've been feeling really lethargic lately, and there's all these little errands that I'm going to force myself to do on my days off, but I felt this. I feel like I kind of need to like take a step back too. It's confusing, but I wanted to talk about kind of my goals, why I'm here in Vegas right now, because I was writing about it this morning, and it I kind of did it as a way to remind myself to kind of like zoom out and just kind of reflect on everything, like my past path to getting here, why I'm here, and like what I want, where I want to go from here. And sometimes I forget how much I've done since high school. I think it's been graduated in 2016. It's been like 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. It's been about like around 5 years. And I didn't go to college. I just decided I didn't want to. And at first, my family, my mom was like super down for it because she always just supports me and whatever, which is super awesome. But my dad was not having it, and he really wanted me to go. And he had my like family call me and try and convince me to go. And I get where they were coming from, but I'm really glad that I didn't because I don't think I would be who I am today if I had gone to college. And so after high school, I went to California, tried living there, too much money. Then I went back to Arizona in Flagstaff, where I started dating this girl who I had previously dated. And during this process, we got really serious. And we actually moved into a truck together and then lived in California for about 9 months. And that was a really powerful experience, like actually really being in love with a girl, especially at the age we were just like all in together. And the lifestyle we kind of had created for ourselves, we were around each other all the time, which in part kind of led to an unhealthy relationship, but it was cool just being with a person that much and being that close to them. Um, then we spent 2 months traveling together. We had saved up money in the truck. First, we went to Indonesia, and that was my first. I had been out of the country before, but like as a small child, it wasn't really. This was my first time, like me taking a step and going, "Let's go out of the country." So that was really eye opening. Going to Indonesia, completely different environment. Definitely had like a sort of culture shock, and we actually broke up near the tail end of that month, and then we stayed traveling together, and we visited her family in Northern Ireland, which was very uncomfortable. and then, um, and that kind of period of my life, and then once we got back, we went our separate ways. I lived in Vegas, and she went. I think it was Oregon, but that was a really big period of my life because it was my first time feeling that intense love, that intense pain, and first time kind of like going out of the world on my own and traveling and experiencing kind of like the crazy chaoticness that like life has. If I'd gone to college, I would be, doing working a certain amount of hours each week, going to school. Like it'd be a very consistent schedule, which is good for some people, but it wasn't for me, obviously, because I felt like I needed to go do this. And yeah, that was a really hard breakup. After we broke up, I moved in with my dad in Vegas. I was completely out of money, and I was fucked up. Like I definitely hated myself really deeply, and I think she felt the same ways for herself too. Like it was not a clean breakup. We like talked for a while afterwards, and it was just messy. And in Vegas, I was doing a lot of reflecting, read like drawing a lot of art and poetry, and I feel fortunate because I stumbled upon someone that like talked a lot about things that I needed to hear because I had been blaming her for a lot of shit and shrugging off responsibility. And this person that I found that had been talking about essentially just being responsible for yourself was like the light in the darkness. And I remember finding him actually when I was in bed in Northern Ireland, not wanting to get out of bed. Like her, Jen was her name. She had gone downstairs and was eating breakfast with her parents, and I was just in bed. I was like, "Fuck, I don't want to get up." I really was so uncomfortable there. It was so rough, and I was like going through YouTube, and I just found this dude, and he started talking, and everything he said completely resonated. So I'm really grateful that I found someone that said stuff that I needed to hear at the time. Vegas, I spent about 9 months in Vegas, and I just worked my ass off. It was disgusting. I would do four doubles, except they were at different jobs, and I would get like 5 hours of sleep during those 4 days. Like 5 hours, 5 hours, 5 hours. And by the third and fourth day, my body felt like it was screaming because I would be so tired. And I think it was good because I saved money, but it was kind of reflective of how much I hated myself. Like I was completely ignoring any sort of love or attention that my body needed, and I was just grinding away. And actually, leave the day before I left, so I had saved about like $10,000, and I was going to take 2 months off. I was going to spend a month going back to Flagstaff and just hanging out with like friends and reconnecting, taking some like a big vacation because I felt like I needed it, and then I was gonna spend a month traveling, going to Europe to visit one of my best friends. And the day before I left Vegas, I did mushrooms with my coworkers, and it was like not a good situation. I shouldn't have done well. At the time, it seemed like a bad idea to do mushrooms, but actually coming out of it, I learned a lot. So I wouldn't change what happened, but I think this is like if you're gonna do psychedelics, this is like a really poor way to do it. The plan was they were gonna come over to my place. There was two people. We were gonna just sleep at my place, get up early, and go to Zion. And my buddy had gotten us mushrooms, and we were gonna go take mushrooms. And um, this chick with us, she was gonna like drive us and be our like designated person to kind of take care of us. She ended up bringing cocaine, and then we ended up doing cocaine all night, which was not a good idea, but we did it anyway. And then, you know, it was maybe 5 or 6 in the morning, and I kind of like told the guy, I was like, I don't think I want to do mushrooms right now. That this doesn't seem like a good idea. And he's like, and he kind of got really butthurt. And at the time, I didn't know how to just feel comfortable with saying something and doing something that I knew I should or shouldn't do. So I kind of was swayed by him being upset, and I said, "Fine, like we'll go." And we went to Mount Charleston, which is like maybe like an I don't know how far away. It felt like an hour drive if I think back, but it could have been less. We drink the mushrooms because it was in a smoothie, and then we go up, and I have this beautiful experience where I kind of go off and I do my own thing. And then when I get back, it was just like a really sketchy situation because we had parked at a campsite, and I show up, and my buddy's just like tripping out. He is not having a really good experience at all. It's like it's obviously really challenging for him, and like you can see his face is sunken in, and he's just like really sketched out. And he was like barely there, and he was like, "We have to go," and I was like, "What?" And there was a car that was just on parked like in the street, and there's this dude just like mad dogging us, waiting for us to leave. And apparently the guy had walked up to my friend and said, "You need to pay for this spot." and my buddy just wouldn't pay him for some reason. And so the dude probably was kind of, he seemed like he was not very like a pleasant person either. So they just started butting heads probably, is what I imagine happened. And so my buddy, I get in the car and he starts driving, and he is not okay to drive. Like, he is swerving and shit. Just, we're driving on like a little road that has no traffic, and he can barely drive. And so finally, I won't go into the whole story, but essentially, like, I get out, I talk to the dude. I'm like, I just tell him what's happening, and then he says you can park outside the campsite and you can hang out there until you're good. And so we did that. It was just a really bad situation. And on the drive back, I got the girl to drive, and I had my buddy sit in the back, and I had this epiphany where I realized how much I had been hating myself and hating my body. And I saw, we were passing all these mountains, and I saw what looked like Mother Earth just laying into the mountains, and it was so beautiful. And I just started crying. And then I saw who I was with, and they're obviously people that were just in the same sort of path as I am, and we're all just trying to live and grow and like be loved. But I realized that I needed to like get away from these people because they weren't good for me. I wasn't good for me, like I just realized how much I needed to just rethink a lot about how I'm going to spend my time, because I had been really reflective of taking like responsibility for myself and like my part in the breakup, and how I need to live my life and work hard and all this stuff. But it had too rough of an edge, and it was just eye opening, and it was really really raw, and it was sad. I felt really sad for myself. Um, but that was the day before. I did my thing. I got home, and then I just left the next day, and I spent a month in Flagstaff where I slacklined a lot with a bunch of friends, and I was gonna spend a lot of time out in nature. I met some really cool friends, and then I went to Europe for a month, and I traveled with my best friend. He was living in Sweden at the time, and that was a really good experience. But I still didn't feel good, like I still just had a lot, even though I was starting to like. I wouldn't even say I was starting to love myself yet either. There was a lot of like dialogue in my brain and my body and my mind that just wasn't healthy. But I was trying, and so um, once I got back from Europe, I moved to Flagstaff, and I spent the last 3 years there. I just moved away from Flagstaff. I spent I went to therapy. That was a big one. I had a lot of frustration with my mom, even though my mom's like a beautiful, awesome person. I think just naturally, as like children, we kind of have shit that we need to work out with our relationships towards our parents. And so I did a lot of that with my therapist, and that really helped. I started saving a lot of money and working a more balanced schedule. I started doing jujitsu, and I think that has changed my life. And I'm really glad that I found it at the age that I did. I was 20 when I found it, and I've pretty much been training jujitsu consistently around 5 days a week, not taking any time off. Besides, I had a knee injury for a month, but I still showed up. I still just sat on the mat. Like, that's how much I loved it. And the gym owner, his name is Morgan. Like, it was he made the whole experience really cool, because I felt so at home and welcome there, and I got to build really cool relationships with everyone there over the years. And yeah, I feel like the introduction to martial arts at that gym showed me how much it has to offer besides just like training and getting good at the sport. Like, you can really connect with people, I think, on a primal level that provides a strong sense of belonging and community. And I think that's really important as a human to feel, because it's easy to feel isolated and alone. And I still feel that all the time. But jiu-jitsu's like a salve to it, you know. Sometimes you feel like shit, and then you go train, and you see a dude that you've been trying to choke out for like 3 years, you know, and it's just fun. Like, you're just happy to see who you train with, and everyone that's there is doing it because they want to be there. You know, it's not like work, because work is like somewhere that usually people wouldn't want to be if they didn't have to be. And that's usually the people that you see the most in your life. But it's not the same. Like, neither of you want to be there. But with jiu-jitsu, it's just different. It's like there's a love and passion that most people have for it, and you just connect differently. Um, and then other shit that happened at Flagstaff. I feel like I just got healthy. I just spent a lot of time working on myself and like having a routine and a schedule for 3 years was really positive. I met a bunch of really cool, what I would consider mentors. Like Morgan, the gym owner, was for sure a mentor. My friend Anthony was for sure a mentor. He was my manager at the time. And he was like the first person that I met in my life where I really was just like, this person has their shit together. And not in like an idolizing way. I feel like a lot of the time, like, we'll find someone or something in our life and we'll be like, oh, this person is like, we really look up to them. And I do really look up to Anthony, but it wasn't in a way that felt imbalanced. Like, I could, you know, he was just another dude, like another human who was clear, you know. Like, he had his flaws like everyone else, but he had just built this life that was, it just felt powerful, and just his energy as a person was really positive. And like normally when managers come in, you know, like everyone kind of gets a little tense and they're like, oh shit, I better go, you know, make it look like I'm working. But whenever Anthony came in, like, everyone was stoked. You know, he just had that uplifting energy. And I kind of like would describe this to people where I'd say like, he's the type of dude that if we were in like a situation like war, where like you would, this sounds really extreme, but this is genuinely how I feel about this guy. Like, if he was like the leader of our group, I would like kill myself for him. You know, like I would sacrifice my life just to save his life, because that's how powerful of a human I think he is. Like, it's better to have him on this world than to not. And we still have a great relationship. He lives in Arizona right now, but we talk and shit consistently. So it's nice having met those guys, because I felt like him and Morgan showed me a lot about stuff that I hadn't previously known about. Um, so yeah, the 3 years in Flagstaff was just a lot of building, like emotionally, mentally, physically. And then near the end of it, I felt like I needed to just move. Like, I had kind of spent most of my time. I had gotten all that I needed out of Flagstaff, I felt like, and I felt like I needed to move and grow and do something new. And Anthony had gone and done ayahuasca at this place in Peru, and ayahuasca is something that I've always wanted to do. And I just felt like I needed it. I was really burnt out the last year from COVID night, like with COVID and shit. Like, just put a lot of stress. I didn't not work at any point. I was working through the entire pandemic, and yeah, it just made me jaded with like kind of work culture in general. Like, me and the staff were completely mistreated by the owner, and yeah, I just got burnt out. It's just as simple as that. And the last 2 months before leaving, I actually felt like I got kind of depressed too. Like, I've never been a person that feels depressed or anything, but for like 2 months, I felt this feeling of like frustrated. I was upset, and I was like lethargic. And I think it's a combination of a bunch of things. But normally when I feel that way, I can like change things in my life that fix that. You know, like if I'm feeling like shit, I can usually be like, okay, what's making me feel like shit, and then I can change that and address it, and then I feel better. But like I did everything I could think of that I needed to do, and it just didn't make a difference. And at the time, I was also going to therapy too, because I went to therapy when I first went to Flagstaff, and then right before I was leaving, I decided to start going to therapy. And it might have been like an unblocking of emotions or something because I hadn't been able to cry since that actual, yeah, huh, yeah. I don't think I had cried since that mushroom trip before leaving Vegas. Since then, I just hadn't cried, and I wasn't able to cry. And that I think that came because when I was in Vegas, I I had like shoved down my emotions and just prevented myself from crying. I just felt like you don't deserve to cry. And even during the 3 years, like as I started to love myself more, that mechanic of my body just turning off when it felt the need to cry just kind of stayed around for a while. And so I started going to this therapist, and she was great. I would literally go in and just cry. Like I felt like I just needed someone to hold the space. And so she was great. I just felt like I got to learn to cry again. And I think maybe in the process, like kind of diving into that, I probably brought up other emotions that maybe were stuffed down and they were just kind of leaking out. It was very unpleasant. I really didn't like those 2 months. And so it worked out though because it was kind of like an unclogging of emotions right before I went to go do ayahuasca. So I spent a month in Peru, first time traveling alone, which felt really significant to me. And I went to an 8 day retreat where I did ayahuasca 4 times. And I can't even like explain how crazy that experience was. There's so much that happened from it. There's so much that happened during it, and so much that happened that has like come out of it, and there's still so much that is happening from it. Like little seeds that were planted in the ceremony are still present. Like it feels like little plants are growing inside me with all these concepts and ideas about my relationship to the world and to myself and how to treat others, how to treat myself. And I was telling my mom this the other day. It feels like, like my worldview was a sphere. And after doing this ayahuasca, it feels like that sphere's expanded, but I haven't explored how it's expanded yet. Like a little bit, I've like thought about it and I tried, like I was really conscious about integrating a lot of the lessons that I took from it. And it's really hard to explain, but like I'll just be at work and I'll be like watching people and it feels like there's just this different perspective of how to view the world that I haven't flushed out yet. So I think that'll just happen over time. I don't think it happens all at once. And I would say the ayahuasca that really showed me a lot about how to like properly love myself, like and love others. Like really seeing how everything's connected, how we're all connected. You know, so I think I wanna dive into that eventually, and just word vomit about that experience because I feel like it's definitely one of the most valuable experiences I've had in my life, and I think it would be important to share that with others in case it's something that they would want to do. And it's funny too. I remember I had this like vision at one point, and you have like a ton of imagery the entire time, so it's not like this is very significant. It was just a little blip in the like vast amount of things that were going through my mind. Um, but I remember having this kind of. I was kind of like the trip at this point. The theme was just like the collective consciousness of everything, and how as like a world, there's like this consciousness that's enveloping it, with life and everything. And I was thinking about us as a whole and how we need to like how can we evolve to grow that consciousness into something that's better, where we're treating each other better, treating our environment better, with just more love. Like, if there's a part of me that needs love, like it's really obvious. It's like, okay, well, now what do I need to do to make this thing feel felt and understood and expressed? And you can think of that on a larger scale with other humans, where it's like someone that you may dislike. It's like that person's a part of yourself somehow. So how can you make them feel acknowledged, understood, and expressed, and kind of bridge that gap so there's not that friction? And I was just thinking, so that's kind of the general theme, and I had this image of like me speaking, like doing something like putting out good vibes into the world, and this is kind of like one of those seeds where at the time I remember thinking like, huh, that doesn't really seem like something I would want to do. Like I don't really feel like I'm the type of person that would go out of my way to like share my life with others in this type of way. And then just when I got to Vegas, I was like, just stuff had kind of been simmering for a while, and I was like, I don't want to work as a server for the rest of my life. I want to be able to make money doing the things that I love doing. And this was like one of the ways that I viewed that path, where I was like, okay, this isn't going to happen instantly, but this is like the start of it. This is something that I should be doing. And sorry, I just got distracted. I feel like this is a really long video. It's 26 minutes, but maybe I'll chop it up. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, no, it's just crazy. Like that's how like a seed was kind of planted, like without even knowing it. That kind of like vision that I had in that ayahuasca ceremony probably influenced me a lot to do this without really knowing about it. And Vegas isn't really where I want to stay. Like I came here to save money. I'm living with my dad right now. I'm just here to save money and to like train martial arts. And that's kind of changed. I thought I just wanted to only do jiu-jitsu for a while. But then after joining this gym that I've been at, my coach really changed the way that I think about how I want to train martial arts. And I just want to approach it in a more well-rounded way. Jiu-jitsu is great, but it's such a small little fraction of being a martial artist. And so when I kind of take a step back and I remember why I'm here in Vegas, it's just to save money and to train martial arts. And then once I kind of have some money saved, I want to go move to a state. I just want to move to a state where I've never been. I've mostly spent my time in Nevada, California, and Arizona. And I feel like I kind of want to just go to a completely new state. And yeah, I kind of feel like it's easy to. I wrote this on my little journal. I wrote my goals here are simple. Yet finding myself in the micro relationship of my environment, I can lose my bigger vision. This micro relationship is really important. So like just the way that I feel day to day, my relationships with the world around me, like that's really important to focus on and to like put energy and time into making healthy. But it's easy to forget why I'm here, to kind of take that view out and to look at like where I've been and where I want to go. And right now, this is just kind of like a temporary place for me. And so when I remember that, it puts everything into. It makes me feel more at ease and takes kind of the significance of the day to day out of it. So I just felt like sharing that. I don't even know if I'm going to share this or not, but I felt like filming this video. So maybe I'll cut it up into some stuff and then share it.